It's interesting how owning your own business either teaches you who you are or kills you.
I agree.
I'm Jamie O'Kane, CPA, Small Business Advanced Tax Planning and Compliance Extraordinaire, and this is the Abundant Beans Podcast, the podcast that takes my love for learning what makes people tick while digging into the good, bad, and ugly of small business ownership. We strive to give you the insight that only those in the trenches of being and working with entrepreneurs can provide. Today, we'd like to welcome to the podcast Grant Aldrich. Grant founded OnlineDegree.com with a purpose-driven mission: make college more accessible and affordable for everyone. After graduating college with an overwhelming amount of debt, he was determined to change how students embark on their college education. Grant has spent his entire career working in startups with nearly 15 years of experience and 2 prior exits to a publicly traded company, has been a board member and donor to a number of nonprofits, an advisor to many publicly traded companies, and a guest speaker at seminars and graduate school courses. He graduated with honors from the University of California, Irvine in economics. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jamie.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've got a lot of questions for you. But first, what was your first job?
Oh, actually, my very first job was doing painting for a homeowners association in the neighborhood that I lived. And actually, no one's really asked me about that. That was my first story and first lesson on the importance of who you know. Because I was probably 13 years old, and my father was in charge of the homeowners. We lived in this large neighborhood that had lots of block walls. White block walls. My father was in charge of the contracting to keep all the maintenance and upkeep as part of the homeowners. And my father, I'll mind you, is not the he's the dad who's harder on his children, not the one who kind of put them at the front of the line. So I had to overcome. So even though I knew, and obviously I had to be far better than anybody else to get this. But what was important, though, was that at that time, to paint these block walls, it was really a win-win, because for a kid at 13, I was getting paid $20 an hour in like the early 90s, to paint these walls. And of course, for them, it was a huge savings because they weren't paying, a really expensive painting company.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a huge win. And again, the key that, because of my network, with your dad, I found out that this was amazing pay and took advantage of the opportunity.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I always ask that question, and I think because a lot of the time it comes back to what we do in the long run. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I interview who had a mowing company, or they had a lemonade stand. Literally, that's how they had that entrepreneurial spirit from day one. Which is very interesting to me. It's like a psychographic, insight into people.
Oh, totally. You're right. And of course, the irony is that after that, I worked into a bunch of, typical retail service industry. I was a server at a restaurant through college jobs. So you see the alternative and you're thinking, oh, this is so awful. This is no wonder people hate this. Being a server, I think almost anybody has to do, because it's such a humbling, miserable experience. And although it pays,
serving, though.
You loved it?
It
pays decently well. And, you get to work kind of short shifts, which is nice.
You get to control your income.
That's true.
Yeah.
Man, you just get dumped on all day. So I guess that is kind of like being a CEO of a startup.
Or an accountant. Pretty similar. I think you learn as a server, what I learned as a server is to deal with different personality types, and then to be personable.
Yeah.
To try to build a relationship and meet even that small amount of time you have. But also that it's pretty easy to keep people happy. If you refill their waters and you don't get the order wrong, it's pretty easy if you're attentive enough. Does that make sense? So all of my bad dreams about waiting, which I still have every once in a while, is about 3 tables and I can't get there. It's them and I can't make them, I can't help them in the way I'm supposed to help them. Right. Which is literally the dreams I have about my CPA clients.
Well, you
right?
just have to keep refilling their water,
It's just
Jamie.
not tables.
You know what's funny though is every server has those same nightmares where you're slammed and you can't get to every table. It's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody's mad at you.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. It's like you're just in the weeds and you can't get out of the weeds.
But you're right though. That's a good point. Like you learn a lot of like valuable skills. That's right. Because you have a very short amount of time to make somebody happy, to think on your feet on how to make them happy, to be personable. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of good things there.
Yeah. I think serving probably taught me more than any other, in front of service-based experience.
People are upset and you have to keep your cool because you're right. Yeah, they're talking down to you or they're being rude to you.
They ordered the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But somehow you put it in wrong.
Hey, no problem.
Literally, this is what I wrote down right here.
Yeah.
This is what you said.
Yeah, actually, this is good. One of the things, not to get off on a tangent.
No, I love tangents. They're my favorite.
Yeah. I've been trying to, so I've got 3 small children, as you know, I'm telling your guests.
Yes.
And or your listeners. And I've been thinking about things and life lessons and important rites of passage to teach them valuable things. And I'd kind of tentatively put that they have to have a server job on there, but now that went to the top of the list because you're right. That is a valuable experience.
And I think you learn also your personality type within that. So I'm extremely detail oriented, not that that's a surprise for anybody, but I'm also decision maker. So as soon as I get enough info, I can make a decision, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also really good at just handling as many details as necessary, which is why I probably excelled at serving. Because you have to be detailed and you have to notice things, and that's one of the things that I'm really good at. Is I can look at a room and see what's in the wrong place, or I'm just extremely observant, and I think that may have been honed with the server stuff, but it might have just been something that I just do.
Yeah, like you innately had. Yeah.
No, I'm just extremely observant. And that's how you be a good server, because you're like, oh, I need water here. Oh, that person's Coke is empty. And then you're just, giving them what they want before they ask for it.
Yeah.
Because you're observing what's happening.
I'm sure those things were all with you as all those characteristics,
Probably.
But you could argue that, that environment definitely fosters those things and challenges you. So that's a good.
And it helps you even create strategy.
You're right.
5 tables that all are at different places, and you have to figure out how to take care of all of them.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk about this all day.
Seriously.
This is the most in-depth conversation I've had about serving and how it pertains, right?
Yeah.
I actually really loved serving. I did it for many, many years. Sometimes I think I might go back.
Yeah. If we have to, right?
Right. It's I could just work shifts and not worry about anything else about that.
That's the other nice thing. Yeah, there's no stress once you leave, right? Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, other than those, those dreams.
Those nightmares.
Yeah, I had one of those not too long ago. About just all the tables and not being able to help people. And I was like, it's just my life right now.
Your PTSD is then stronger than mine. Mine wore off years ago, but I did have them for a long time.
Yeah, and I think it just has to do with clients and all the stuff going on right now. And it's just,
Yeah.
So tell us, just give us a cliff notes on your career journey.
Yeah. Well, I would actually just preface that ever since I was a little kid, I wanted freedom. And this is important in my story because, when I say freedom, I'm not referring to the adolescent sense of freedom of, I want to eat whatever I want and go to bed at any hour. No, really, even at a young age, true holistic sense that I wanted freedom. My parents were teachers, and I looked at the fact that in their lives that I felt that although they lived a comfortable life, that they didn't have freedom and creativity in their work or in their personal life or to go wherever they wanted. And I craved that. And so I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And the irony and the funny thing about that is that I didn't really even know what that meant. I didn't understand that fully, but I knew that the entrepreneurs were the ones who got that. And so the irony, of course, is that in the first 2 startups of the first 13 years of my career, the sad irony is that I actually became a slave in my pursuit of freedom. And I think it was because I viewed freedom as something that you had to attain at the end of the tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to living every day. And I built all these things around me because at the core of it, I didn't know myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't, I think I was too tolerant of things that were making me unhappy. And that's not a good thing. I mean, we all get taught that tolerance is a good thing, right? But not for ourselves and our happiness. You have to actually be very intolerant of any kind of encroachments or deviations. So I imagine after I come out of that, I'm very lucky. I had tons of failures in my first 2 startups. When I came out of college, created eventually two startups that, I made every mistake in the book, every failure, and I'm still shocked today that I was able to exit both of those companies and get a really good result. And I was sitting around and I had a very introspective period where I realized that this path that I thought I was going to go on, I'm going to go start another big company. I'm going to have more employees, bigger, was not going to make me happy. And I was going to be miserable. This was not the path I wanted. Also around that time, I had my first child. So that really changed me as well, not to be too, cliche. And I decided that I wanted to really I really took that period to get to know myself. And now I think that what I've created now in terms of my lifestyle and the work that I'm doing is far more me.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of us will start a business thinking we want freedom, but then ending up being slaves.
Isn't that it? That's almost always the case because eventually, and it creeps on very slowly. It's not happens at once. It's just a slow creep. And all of a sudden you realize, what are these shackles?
Well, and the more I talk to people and the more I watch entrepreneurs and the more I, interact or network or whatever, we're all helpers. Yeah. And it's really easier to say yes to help people than, like you said, say no or be intolerant, because we always feel like we can fix things for people who aren't ready to fix things.
Well, that's it, right? Because usually entrepreneurs are self-starters. I mean, look at yourself. People who are willing, are very confident enough in themselves to take these big leaps in their abilities. And so you're right. You could see that personality profile has a tendency to wanting to do more than they probably should and to try to tackle more than they should. You're right. So you have to know that about yourself. And I really think it's a question of that. Rarely when entrepreneurs go through business ideas, right? When they're doing the exercises of what that idea is going to be, which is a great, healthy thing to do, and you should do, coming up with ideas and, poking holes through them. They rarely consider their happiness as a criteria of the business plan and the business, right? They always just use the traditional metrics of, can I make money? Is it can I scale it? Blah, 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 blah. They rarely consider, is this the right business for me? Because they think to themselves, hey, I can do anything. If I'm making money, I'm not going to care. And I can achieve anything. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can have your cake and eat it too if you pick a business that is going to make you happy. Like an example, if you don't like having employees, then you shouldn't pick a business where you need a bunch of employees. or if you want to wear board shorts every day, well, then you shouldn't be picking a business where you need to go out and wear a suit. It's just bad ideas.
Well, and I think a lot of people are creating businesses so what I find is a lot of people create a business to create a paycheck. Right, to pay themselves, but they never think beyond, why am I creating? If I'm going to create my own business, what is it going to give me? And I ask people that question on my intake forms. What do you want your business to give you? Yeah, and because we do goal-based planning. If you don't know what you want, I can't help you. So it's very interesting because a lot of people are just like, I just want to make money. It's just like, that's not enough purpose.
So you serve as not only as a CPA, but as a counselor, a psychiatrist, right?
I do a lot of therapy.
You're right. People need that. Yeah,
they do. But because we do advanced tax planning, what are we planning for?
Exactly.
What is the money for? If I just save you tax money, what are you going to do with it? How does it help you get somewhere? Right? It's purpose-based. So if you want to expand your business and then sell it so that you can go live in Bali, fabulous. That's a plan, or that's a reason, right? I always say tax havens without a reason is fruitless because there's no purpose and people don't want to do the work. So
Yeah.
it's pretty
No,
interesting.
that's actually I'm sure that when you pose that, people are a little taken aback at first and not unsure how to answer that. And I bet going through the exercise is really refreshing for them because you're probably eliciting considerations that they haven't put into place yet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I have had people be like, well, I think I want this. And like, they'll just answer my question. And then like 24 hours later, I'll get an email. Nobody's actually ever asked me what I want, what I really want in life, you know? And they're like, this is what I really want. And it's like this whole paragraph of like where they see themselves at some point. You know, if they could, if they had their druthers where things would be. Okay. We're going to be here all day. So tell us about onlinedegree.com.
Yeah, well, I'll describe it in a nutshell. And my goal was to make college more affordable and accessible for everyone. So with onlinedegree.com, anybody can go online, register in our platform in 60 seconds with no applications, no entrance exams, and begin taking as many college level courses as they'd like for credit towards their degree, online 24/7, anytime they'd like. We also provide all kinds of student support services for them to help them kind of figure out their way and organize discounts at the various universities on their behalf. And we do it all for free.
And how is it paid for?
Great question.
Who pays for it?
It's actually completely supported by the universities. And so when I first started this, I looked at the problem that there's an estimated about 35 to 40 million working adults who are not taking the first step to go back to school, although despite overwhelming demand. And you can imagine, right? Globalization, robot automation, technological advancements, there's a lot of jobs that have been wiped out, and a lot of that are going to be wiped out, unfortunately. And yet people aren't taking that first step. And I looked at that problem and I saw that there was these impediments that were holding them back that the community college system was not meeting, which makes sense because the community college is a government entity at the end of the day. And it can't provide a good service because that's not what it's supposed to do. It can't be tailored for everybody because it's all about tax dollars trying to provide at least something for people. So I looked at these impediments and I said, you know what? What's stopping a working adult? Well, the first is the physical impediment, which is, hey, I can't leave work 3 times a day and go to a classroom. I mean, that's just not going to work. So I'm like, it has to be fully online on their own schedule and pace. They're busy. They've got kids, all this stuff. Then there's the psychological aspect impediment, which is that, as adults, we kind of let things linger and we a lot of it is based on fear where can I be successful going back into an online classroom? Am I going to be embarrassed or am I going to be in a weird classroom with a bunch of kids? Will I even know how to learn online or find something interesting? And of course, that was the other thing. No, we have got interesting stuff. It's very low stress, low pressure. Come on in, go intro to robotics, programming, history, accounting, marketing, whatever you want. And the final, which was the key one, was the financial impediment. Right now, if someone wants to go back to school, it's this giant leap that you have to take in terms of your commitment of finances to do it. So I thought, first off, we're going to make it free. We're going to make it so someone can wade in the pool instead of jump in the pool. And even when they start swimming, it's going to be far more affordable than if you had gone the other route. And so because of that, we've made this system that obviously benefits the consumer. So that's probably inherent. But for the university, the unspoken truth is that universities are desperate for better students. And when I mean better, I mean students that will finish their program, who are more prepared when they come in and lead less resources in terms of onboarding and things like that, and who are going to be successful from day one. Because the university is judged by grades, like their outcomes of their students, if they drop out or not. So they're very interested in having good students. So we've really created a win-win where the universities all sponsor the platform and the students get it all for free. And it creates this win-win that helps everybody get to the same goal.
That's all really fascinating. I love it. But also they get to try stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's part of it, right? Because even as, I think we could all attest to this, even as a 30, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, whatever you are, we all don't know what we want to be when we grow up.
I say that all the time. I say that all the time. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Exactly. I don't think we ever really know. And we just kind of fall into something, and then we just, hopefully we like it.
We fall into something that maybe we're good at, which is what happened with me. I was accounting my 5th major. It might have been my 5th major.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, what were your first 4?
So I started in the chemical engineering department.
Okay.
I failed chemistry, and then calculus did not go so hot. And then I looked around and went, these people for the next 4? I need a little more fun and personality. Come on, guys.
And the calculus people?
Yeah, than the engineers. I married an engineer, though, so there you go.
That's the irony.
That's the irony. And then I kind of hopped around, but I did Spanish for a while until I hit a wall. Okay. And I was like, oh, it's not going to be Spanish. And then I went to the business school, and I started in just business management. I was like, well, just do business management. And then I took my first accounting class, and I went, oh.
I love it.
That's the thing that makes sense. I'm teaching everybody debits and credits, and I'm, asking the teacher questions they can't answer, and it just worked.
Well, so your arc, and for people who've maybe never gone back to school or have at least tried a little bit of school, is actually the norm. Mm-hmm. I also changed majors. And it's I forgot what the statistic is, but it's overwhelmingly strong that you're going to change. And the sad thing is for you and myself, we spent a lot of money at college making those, stumbling through that decision process. Mm-hmm. Yeah, stumbling through that process. Mm-hmm. When if we did have a free platform where we could have tested out, and you could have had, let's say, I'm taking a chemistry course, taking that Spanish course, and I'm taking an accounting course. Mm-hmm. You may have come to that epiphany much sooner.
Yeah. And I think it's back to we don't know what we want to do. You're 18 years old. How do you know what you're good at or what works for you or what makes sense? And thankfully I had parents who were just like, okay, figure your life out. They've always been like that, but most people don't. I mean, we ask 2-year-olds what they want to be when they grow up. Right?
Yeah.
And I ask my kids, I've changed that narrative for them. I'm trying to, is what problem do you want to solve or what's fun for you?
Oh, that's good.
Because I don't want you to just pick some random major or go into accounting because I'm an accountant. Because I can tell you right now, my son would not be good at that. And probably not my daughter. She's going to be a lawyer.
Got it.
But how do we don't know. And then I found out there was a midwifery school here in the United States, and I had no idea about any of that. And I was like, oh, well, dang. I found that out 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, dang. Could have said I didn't go to Bastyr.
And it's also true. Because you're right. Because you ask that 2-year-old, what do you want to be? He's only going to be able to say 5 careers he knows about, right? I want to be a fireman. So, but
they're not count beans.
Yeah. Because you're right. It's even as we get older, we don't really know about all the different careers out there.
No, I meet people in careers I didn't even know existed all the time.
Totally.
And it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I want my kids to go try stuff.
Absolutely.
My daughter's like, I'm going to work at Starbucks for a year. And I was like, and then you're going to go intern here. And then you're going to do this. And you're going to do this. And you tell me what's fun.
Well, that's the smart thing. I think that's where something that I didn't have, where I think I would do, is that kind of we talked about, back to the server thing, was having an intern in a variety of spots where it's not just some, time wasting, I'm being hard
on things.
Yeah. Retail job where they're not going to learn anything. It's just a job. And I think that's a waste, because you're right. There is all this pressure to, for children to make this decision at an earlier stage. I mean, 18, you're right. Wow. Are any of us the same person we were when we were 18?
Brains aren't even fully formed here. It's not even attached yet. Pick something.
Exactly. The ridiculousness of that. And so, and so the more that you can go through internships or experiences that are more telling, then I'm working at Sears, which was one of my also retail jobs, which was a total waste. And, that's valuable. So I agree with you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. We keep telling the kids, trade school.
There you go. Yeah, right.
Pick a trade.
What's great about that too is that that's so rarely prescribed. And yet, I mean, if you look at the US now, I mean, think about it. One of the top jobs I heard in the trade school is a welder. And these guys make something like $60 an hour,
Yeah.
doing
My
welding.
stepbrother's a welder.
Yeah. And that's a great career. And and those guys, they love it. And they make, and that is more appropriate for someone. So I think another issue that we have in a macro sense is the overprescription of degrees. So one of the other things too, that I really want to do, that we've now expanded our platform, is that I saw that we started off just offering the degree pathways, but then we've now adopted where we've also gone out and we've organized discounts and all these perks for certification programs. And so just for that case, right? Because not everybody wants a degree or needs it. So if you want to be a CPA, you need a degree. But if you want to go the welder path or trade school, then that's not the right path.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to do tax returns, there's the EA path, which is the certificate.
Yeah.
And people don't understand the difference between CPAs and EAs. But you don't need to go to a college for 4 years and get a CPA. You can learn how to do taxes and be an EA.
Yeah.
That's probably the same amount of money I make with less CPE.
Yeah, totally.
So that was kind of one of my questions is like, well, how is the traditional system broken? And I think you're totally right. It's over prescriptive. Like we're taking all these high school kids and being like, pick a college.
Yeah, I think that the current system had a lot of faults. Because when you dive into why those 35 million people are not taking that first step, I think that if you surveyed all of them on the street and said, "Hey, would you like a degree in a perfect world?" they'd all say, "Sure," but it's the cost benefit analysis that's totally become out of whack. And so we only have so much money, we only have so much time, and so then you back that out and said, yeah, not everybody should go get a degree, but for the people who do, it's too expensive and it's not accessible for busy adults. This whole system was never created for adults, and only now is that changing. So I think we've been ushering that in. And one of the things that we do online degree is that we curate the schools that are adult friendly. And when I say that, what I mean is that schools that are working very hard and are now built for adults. And these are great schools, public schools, private schools, all these different excellent institutions where their programs are all online. They're flexible, more affordable, more support for adults. All these things that make them adult friendly. And that's the ones we like to work with, because I don't want to send someone who I know we appeal to a traditional campus with this awful program that they're going to be miserable out on. No, we're trying to create the whole thing and curate that for people. And people don't even know these programs exist. So that's another thing I think that we do.
That's awesome. And it creates success, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's like the whole package of like, start here, figure out what you want to do, and then let's get you in the right online university, and so you can be successful.
Yeah, because it's not like even a car is not necessarily an easy purchase, but it's easier because it's tangible. This is complex, and I realized that one of the faults of the community college system is that you don't get any support. You want to meet with your counselor. Okay, 3 months from now, you have an appointment with this one counselor who has thousands of students to deal with. It doesn't work, and it's because in that system they don't have the sense of a customer. And if you have the sense of a customer like a private enterprise, you understand that their happiness is what's most important and what they want. And so you try to provide these services to help them. And that's the difference.
I remember actually sitting down with my guidance counselor maybe one time when I was like, okay, I have 1 year to finish all my upper level accounting degree, like all my upper level classes. Help me.
Yeah.
Because I need to know when and how and the thing. And they're like, oh, well, we only do this one on this semester, which is not this one and the other one. And so I had to figure out how to get it all in. I actually did it between 3 different schools to get it all done. But I was driving. I did summer classes, then I was driving to get to those classes to get it all done in a year, because it was my 5th year and I had needed to be done.
Good for you, though. See, that's not easy.
But it would have been nice to have somebody help me coordinate all that, or, understand it. So I know my alma mater, CSU, has their huge global system, which I'm sure you guys work with. My VA actually just graduated from CSU Global with her master's in HR.
Very cool.
Yeah, which is awesome. And she was like, this is like the best experience, and they take such good care of us. And she like keeps talking about her counselor, and I was like, you like have a relationship with them and stuff. And they were like helping her like apply for jobs and like, help her figure out her path, and like they were just amazing.
Yeah, see, that's the difference, right? Because we work with Colorado State University Global, and you're right. You can't compare. the two. It's just not the same because
Mm-mm.
they're waking up slowly
Mm-hmm.
that this is something that they have to provide for adults, or they're just not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just amazing. CSU, I think they're kind of on the cutting edge of this global stuff because I remember they started it like right about the time I graduated. They started
Yes.
adding campuses and stuff, which was like 2003.
Yep.
So it was pretty cool. They're kind of on the forefront of all this. It sounds
Yeah.
like it's been a really good experience for people.
We're about the
Yeah.
same age then. I also graduated in 2003.
Oh,
And
did you?
yeah. And you're right. They're one of the
Mhm.
pioneers in that. Now,
Mhm.
luckily, those early pioneers, I mean, hats off to them. They paved the way. But
Mhm.
now there are a lot of options.
Oh, yeah,
Great
there's a
options.
ton of options.
And they're a good option.
Mhm.
No, nothing but, and we do work with them very closely.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's a lot of great options.
So cool. Yeah. And I think, one of the biggest things we see with the traditional system is like teachers with master's degrees making 40 grand a year. Like, is a mismatch between the need for education and like what you're going to make on the back end.
Yeah, and that's if you're going to pick that pathway, I think you need to know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And
is that really necessary? Can we do teaching certificates or something?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing is that you get a lot of time off. I mean, that's the corollary to that. And so, I remember that my parents were teachers,
Mm-hmm.
and you're right. You're not going to ever get rich,
Mm-hmm.
but you're comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and you're given and afforded an immense amount of time to spend with family or to do something else on the side.
Yeah.
So I remember, now I'm not saying
know.
this is the recommended path, but I remember my parents would do, tutoring on the side, and then we would do a lot with us. And so that's at least something that's,
Yeah, I feel like the demands are different now.
I agree.
They're a lot different now. I mean, the teachers in our school district actually make pretty good money for teachers, but still it's not a living wage here in Colorado.
Okay. Yeah.
That's an issue. They're like, we have a master's degree. Thanks for my 50 grand. I have to go marry somebody who makes money now. Really?
Yeah.
Or, they can all live in the same apartment or something. I don't even know. So how is the need for higher education shifting? What are you seeing?
Well, interestingly, with this COVID crisis, I think what this is going to do is accelerate or expedite what was already about to happen. And so if you look at higher education, it's a enormous industry, $700 billion industry.
Holy cow.
I know, much larger than you'd think. And yet it's been declining a little bit every year. And the only segment that's been growing is the online portion of higher education, which is growing rapidly. And I think that's at 50 billion, and it's going to overtake it eventually. So, but there's been a lot of resistance to moving a lot of programs online. And most of that resistance has come from internally within the universities, because faculty have had this stigma and this reluctance to adopt online learning, which is foolish, right? Because I think now after all these years, it's been proven that for so many programs, online is a superior format to learning. You've got multiple screens up. That is a far better, more immersive environment in the quiet of a private space, and not in some big classroom where you're getting distracted by everybody else, to learn. And so I think that from a learning perspective, maybe not the social perspective, but the learning perspective, it's a far better medium. And so that was already happening. But I think what COVID now has done is, because it's now forced everybody to go online and adopt, it's going to change the norms, and the die, which was already been cast, is just now that it's going to roll faster.
It's interesting how this thing is pretty much I was talking to my husband about it yesterday. It's going to change how we work. It's going to change how we learn. It's going to change, it's basically just taking these things that have been kind of slow adopting, like we have our early adopters, we have our mid-range adopters, but all these late to mid-range ones, they're just getting pushed. Like it's just happening.
Yeah,
just
totally.
Hop on it. Let's go. So it's pretty cool. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens on the back end of all that.
I know, it's pretty crazy. And you're right, though. It's going to change all that.
So I'm going to skip a couple since we've gone tangenty. So how do you guys help people understand the correct track for themselves?
Well, to your point earlier, it's all about the goal. I think that's what's really important, and understanding. So what we do is we ask questions. What is your goal, and what do you want to achieve? And tell us a little bit more about your current situation, because if you're someone who maybe isn't hindered like most of us are as adults with kids, work schedule, I live next to a big camp, all that. Well, then, you may not we don't necessarily need to prescribe, X over Y. But for the most part, adults all have a very similar problem, and it's time and money. And so then what we would do is say, look, let's first, all right, what kind of program are you interested in? Great. Let's think about some options for you in terms of school. You almost start with the end. Because if I know, for example, that I'm going to be going to CSU Global and I'm going to get that degree in HR, well, perfect. Well, then I can then back out and say, here's how we could help you. So if I was speaking to you, let's say if you were that person going to CSU Global, I'd say, great, we've got 15 courses that can articulate over to CSU Global. So you could, if you take those can count as general education electives, really cool stuff. Plus, we do have some business courses that kind of apply to HR, like psychology. And when you take those courses, that will get you about 30% of your degree towards completing at CSU Global for free. Oh, wow. And then our students get an additional 10% discount when they arrive at CSU Global. So in all, you could save 40% on that degree, and you could do it a lot faster because our courses, you can just go through at your own pace. If you want to finish it as fast as possible, it doesn't have to fit the normal semester time frame, go for it. And then we would say, great, so let's get you connected there, get everything you need from them and prepped, start taking courses here, you're set.
That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
That's so cool.
Thank you.
I mean, I just love it because, but also you could try it. Like you can start some of that gen ed stuff, and if you hate it, then you're like, let's try something else. But it's that all begin with the end in mind stuff, right? Like, what do you want? How do you, how long do you want to get there? You know, and then everybody's issue is time and money, right? So I love that because it's all stuff we talk about all the time. But I love it. Yeah, you have to begin with the end in mind, and then you just kind of back into where are you now, and how do we get you there?
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. So we're going to shift gears here. So you have founded and exited a few businesses. What can you tell us about the obstacles and successes from those experiences?
All obstacles and one success.
which is what I love to hear. Don't be like, oh, well, I just rocket life. And
No. I think that, one of the things that is rarely spoken about in startups is just how hard it is and all the mistakes you do make. And because, in the media, they love the success story, right? The little startup that is now worth billions of dollars. And that's what you hear about. You don't hear about all the ones that fail. Yeah. You don't hear about the struggles and like the real paths. And the reality is that, and you can also attest to this as an entrepreneur and self-made person, the road is hard, and you have to have like this, it takes a certain dynamicism to be able to weather all the challenges you're going to face. I was actually funny. My son, who's 3.5, asked me the other day, he goes, what do you do for work all day? And I said, I thought about it. I'm thinking, how am I going to explain what I do? And then it gave me a moment of clarity to really boil it down. And I came down to him, I said, I just solve problems all day long. That's all I do. And whether my problem is what I'm doing or your problem, which is someone's awful tax return.
That's what we're doing, right? Yeah. We're solving people's problems.
Yeah. That's all you do all day. And that's crazy, right? Except for with an entrepreneur and with a startup, you're solving problems all day, but you have to be following this vision that you've set out and making sure that vision and the direction is still correct every single day, or you have to pivot. And assuming the risk and the responsibility that there is no safety net, that this is all the merits of your success are going to be on you, and you get to reap those benefits or assume the worst. Which is exhilarating and cool in many ways. It's a very neat dichotomy.
Yeah, and that's different than having somebody bankrolling you on the back with a safety net.
Yeah, totally.
Right? So, for most small business owners, that's not the case, right? They don't have somebody handing them their startup capital or whatever.
You're right.
We're just trying to figure this out as we go. It's interesting because I feel like it's constant changing of how we do things and what we provide and what we do. But the business doesn't grow if I don't continue to do that. And, we're not different if I don't continue to change how we take care of people. Because it's not what I want it to be yet, because we keep we keep getting closer, but you're right. Like it's a really long road and takes a lot of perseverance a lot of the time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's one, you have to be a bold person, because to do this stuff, you got to be bold, right? And
That's
if that's
very
not
true.
there, just don't do it.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, in addition to that, you're right. You have to have all those qualities
Mm-hmm.
that allow you to improvise and to solve issues and just
And
be
pivot.
resourceful. Yeah.
Yeah. And stand around. I think what I do a lot of the time, especially like right after April 15th, which is a whole nother story for me right now. After April 15th, almost every single year, I pretty much just stand around and look at like what happened and how it happened and how the hell I don't ever want to do that again. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like every year is just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Until the government extends our due dates, and it's very confusing. But
yeah, and that's the reality of that business, right? Which is kind of cool, right? I'm sure when you've probably made the best of that. Where like after, I mean, I'm projecting, this is a question, but a lot of accountants that I know, they go they go on vacation for like a month after that. And whether you do that or not, I just mean that it's like because of the cycle of that kind of business, you have to kind of like have that like cathartic, like a reset.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we do high quality, low quantity. So it's not like we're doing 12-hour tax returns every day. That's not happening because I refuse. I don't have the bandwidth for that. I don't ask my people to have the bandwidth for that because it's awful. And it's not what's fun. That's not what the fun part of taking care of our clients. Yes, we do their tax returns because we already did all the planning and all of that stuff to go into said tax return. But that's not, it's just a required service. It's not one we like to do.
Yeah.
It's not value add, right? It's a product. It's the product of all the things we've already done. So I worked in firms, with mandatory overtime, and it was horrible. And I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome because of it after a couple pregnancies, and I was a disaster. And I refuse to do that to myself again. So, but the best part of being your own business owner is you get to make your own rules.
That's it.
People are like, "Are you working 12-hour days?" I was like, "Under no circumstance." No. And
part of the time, that's the invigorating part. You get to be in charge. Yeah,
I get to choose.
That's right.
It's that freedom, right?
That's it.
Yeah, I don't have to run a traditional firm. Why would I run my own firm if it was going to be a traditional firm? I could go work for somebody else. Have a lot less headache if I wanted to work in a traditional firm.
But you're right. It's that freedom that you get to do to pick the clients that you want, the day that you want to have, where you work, all that stuff. That's amazing. And of course, implicit in that, of course, is that you can never have utmost freedom without utmost responsibility. So that's kind of like the implicit side of that. But you're right. It's worth it.
It is. And it's amazing. I always say I'm unemployable at this point.
That's so true.
Like I always wanted to improve things and change things and do better. And, I wanted to do that in my prior firms, but I wasn't allowed to. Yeah. So now I get to do everything. And my poor people are just like whiplash half the time, but they'll get over it.
Yeah, totally.
I'm building this thing for all of us. So hopefully you figure out if you're happy here or not. You're on the bus or you're off.
That's right.
All right. So before I ask my last question, what is the easiest way for people to find you?
Yeah, well, they can keep up with the project. It's onlinedegree.com.
Okay.
And, and whether, of course, whether it's appropriate for even you to use it in this part of your life, it's kind of a neat project just to follow what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then also I'm active on LinkedIn. I like that platform the best. So if you go onto LinkedIn, if any of your listeners want to connect with me, just either search my name, Grant Aldrich, or onlinedegree.com. I'll pop up. And great to connect.
Yeah, you're easy to find. And we'll link it all. We linked everything in the description box.
Cool.
So in your vast experience, what is the one piece of advice you would give a business owner looking to expand their knowledge and in their chosen expertise?
I would say they have to ask themselves a maxim that's 3,000 years old from ancient Greece, which is know thyself.
Yeah.
There was so for your listeners who don't know what that is, that on the Temple of Apollo in ancient Greece, which Apollo is the god of wisdom, inscribed on the entrance was know thyself. And in that period, the way they looked at that was that how could you ever know anything if you don't know yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually think that for most business owners, kind of what we alluded to earlier about that consideration of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't know yourself, how could you ever make decisions on what's going to make you happy every day, right? If you don't have that honest introspective period. It's almost like I make the analogy of having a compass when you leave the shore. I mean, people just kind of take off and they don't ever recalibrate where they're going with that compass of where they want to be and what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That I would recommend, because I see so many people who never really ever figure that out. And they fill the void with materialism. They fill the void with all kinds of things that are not healthy. And where they may just realize that they need very little to be healthy in life. And that's the thing that I would recommend. So I think once you have that, you've got it all.
Yeah. It's interesting how owning your own business either teaches you who you are or kills you.
I agree.
It's so true. I can't tell you how many business owners I talk to, like I said, don't know what they want. They don't know what their strengths are. They don't know what they want to do or how they want, what direction they want to go. And they don't know how to get there. But if you know who you are, you can at least filter things through that, right? Like that feels good to who I am, or it doesn't feel good to who I am and where I want to go.
You're right. And what's sad is that because I think what happens is people get trapped, right? They made a bad decision. They didn't pick business well for them. And then all of a sudden they've got, like you said, the mortgage, the kids, and like, what the heck do I do now? And like, can I even pivot this to make it happy for me? And I think, again, that's just one of those things. You go to MBA school, you go to whatever, people, any course on entrepreneurship, they don't talk about this as one of the criteria for choosing a business. And it's the most important.
Yeah. And it's hard I think in my experience, working for other people, you become those people after a while. Yeah. So when I started working on my own, I had to figure out who I am and also what that crap was that I was bringing along with me that really wasn't congruent. But you have to be willing to do that work. So it's therapy. I do a lot of therapy, I guess. Yeah.
I'm like laying down on the couch right now, by the way. During this whole show, I've been laying down on a couch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much for listening or watching. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you prefer to listen. If you learned something and found some useful information to apply to your business today, please consider giving us a thumbs up and a review. Until next week, be abundant.